The good old days of the 8-bit NES have long since passed us by, but many old school gamers like myself and many of you still thrive for the retro. And plenty of indie developers out there have taken note and tried to craft retro experiences that can bring back those memories, and some have done an amazing job, and others not so much. One in particular that I really enjoyed from last year was Jet Gunner, and now, a year later, that same developer is back with a brand new title called Fist Slash, and this one will definitely take you back to those days of Nintendo Hard, where you're just trying to do your best not to throw your NES controller across the room. Fans of the old Strider, Shatterhand, and especially Ninja Gaiden are gonna feel right at home with Fist Slash. The action platforming aesthetic is very much like Ninja Gaiden, with your long blade that you're going to be slashing your way through enemy after enemy, item boxes hanging overhead that you're busting open hoping for either health or that power-up in particular that you need, and you're going to be clinging on to wall after wall that get up platforms, help you leap over large gaps and clear just barely by this much a spike or two that would mean instant death. The game features 6 action-packed levels with locations that any old-school gamer would be familiar with. You have like your forest, your desert-themed, a moving train, and even another alien-style dimension level. The story doesn't take itself seriously, has some of that broken English in it to make it feel like it really is an old-style NES game, with your main character having the ability to slash his way through all the enemies. You're in charge of trying to stop the evil Dr. X, who is trying to get these shards of a mysterious mirror, and if he's able to get all the shards together, he'll be able to open up a portal to the other dimension, and you have to do your best to battle his hordes of enemies in order to finally stop him. The game features 3 different difficulties for you to master, and one cool thing is when you complete a level and unlock the next one, if you game over, you can select that level right away again. There's no continues in the game, but you can just select level 2, 3, 4, whatever right away and actually change up your difficulty. So if you get to level 5 and you're finding it way too challenging, you can scale the difficulty back, and there's really no penalty for doing so than your kind of old school retro pride, I guess. The biggest difference with the difficulties is, yeah, you're going to have enemies that are tougher and deal more damage, but the biggest thing is the knockback. If you've ever played Castlevania or Ninja Gaiden, then you know knockback is your biggest enemy. You know, when you get hit by an enemy and you fly backwards without being able to control your character and you end up going right down a pit. Well, if you play on the hardest difficulty in Fist Slash, you're going to get that same old school style knockback. But if you scale the difficulty back a bit on the normal difficulty, you only get a tiny knockback and you can immediately kind of gain control of your character again. Or if you decide to play on the casual difficulty, you don't get knocked back at all. And I will admit, from being an old school gamer, I breezed through the first 4 stages of this game no problem, but once I got to stage 5 and then 6, that's when the difficulty and my enjoyment really revved up for Fist Slash. I was finding myself at a couple of particular spots getting really frustrated, and I'm sure if you check out the game yourself, you're gonna find a couple of spots, especially in level 6, that are gonna drive you a little bit crazy. Besides just your Fist Slash blade that you're going to be knocking enemies' heads off with, you also have a few other power-ups at your disposal. I really like the wave that you can fire up and down above and below your character to take out annoying flying enemies, and a few bosses in particular can be really dealt with easily with that particular weapon. You have a kind of flame wheel that circles around you, keeps you invincible for a few seconds, and takes out anything that runs into you. You can actually power up the blade itself in order to kind of fire out a projectile from it, making it much more deadly than it already defaultly starts at. And you also have some stuff like a 3-shot cannon blast that you can fire out at enemies to do some damage, and a boomerang-like weapon that will fire out and then retract and take out pretty much anything that it ends up going to, and then if you jump over it, it'll go behind you and take out enemies that may be sneaking up behind. When it comes to retro games, not only am I looking for just the appearance and the gameplay, the soundtrack plays an important role, and the soundtrack here is okay at best. I always felt like the music was crescendoing and getting ready and building up to something that was going to be absolutely spectacular. but unfortunately it never delivers. There's some good music here, and there's a couple of tracks in particular I wouldn't mind listening to outside of the game, but I all felt like they could have added just a bit more something to them to make them pop and be really memorable. Other than the soundtrack, I did have a few other key problems with Fist Slash, and the biggest being that there's no customizable controls. If you're using a keyboard, you have to use the directional buttons and the A and S keys, and if you're using a controller, it defaults the movement to the joystick over the D-pad, which just doesn't feel natural for a retro-style game. Besides that, you also have to hit the jump button twice in order to attach yourself to walls. You lose power-ups between levels. Even if you just naturally are progressing through the game between the stages, you lose all your items and power-ups, which may have been a design choice, but I think it would have been better since I didn't die not to punish me for being able to complete a stage. Or maybe show your character losing your abilities at the end of a level. Graphically, the game does the 8-bit style well, and from a technical standpoint, the game ran fine for me, but there really is no customization whatsoever. Not just controls, but being able to change screen sizes, going full, the windowed, or just anything whatsoever. The only things in the options are to say you have a controller in or not, and to mess with the sound test, which does get a thumbs up for me for being able to listen to the music outside of the game, but besides that, it would have been nice to feature at least a few things to mess around with. Overall, I enjoy my time with Fist Slash. It is a short and sweet experience. Retro fans will probably get a kick out of not only the look, but the feel of the game as well. You'll probably even want to boot up Ninja Gaiden after running through Fist Slash. With only a handful of levels, and even with the difficulties, it only took me a few hours to be able to see everything that the game had to offer, though there are Steam achievements for you to unlock, and there's supposed to be Steam trading cards, though I didn't unlock any during the 3 hours that I was playing through the game, though I don't know if that means they're just not implemented yet, or I just didn't play long enough in order to unlock them. When all is said and done though, I am giving Fist Slash a 6 out of 10. A little bit of tweaking here and there, adding some customizable controls, and the game would have been even better than what it was. It's only $3.99 currently available on Steam, and if you like old school and retro like I do, you may want to check it out. But with that, that's going to wrap up this review of Fist Slash. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoy.